This special edition of Siskel and Ebert is brought to you by Orville Redenbacher, the first and last name in popcorn.
Talking about mass murder, General, not war.
Mr. President, I'm not saying we wouldn't get our hair mussed, but I do say no more than 10 to 20 million killed, tops, depending on the breaks.
Dr. Strangelove. Apocalypse Now.
When we left the movie show, the future wasn't bright, but came the dawn, the show goes on, and I don't want to say goodnight. Don't say good morning!
Singing in the Rain. What do these three films have in common? Each one contains a scene that either Gene or myself considers to be one of our favorite scenes of its kind in movie history. And our all-time favorite great scenes in the movies is the subject of this special edition of Siskel and Ebert. I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune. And in picking my favorite, not necessarily the greatest, but my favorite musical scene of all time, I first thought naturally of Astaire and Rogers or Gene Kelly. But I want to make my choices really personal on this show, so I went with a personal favorite from 1977, the Night Fever dance number from Saturday Night Fever. It occurs early on in the picture, after we've seen John Travolta and these kids already insult and compete with each other. But as the Bee Gees music builds, these quarreling kids are brought together by the music. Look at them fall into step with each other. The music is healing as the Night Fever dance number turns into a dream of what might be if young people could learn to dance with each other off the floor as well. A fevered dream of dance. Now, I don't know if director John Badham saw that scene as a healing dream, but I do, and I cherish it. What could be a better dance scene than one that shows dance is capable of bringing about for these young people a reverie of peace? That's why people dance.
Now, I know you've seen this movie about 27 times, but I think you're the only critic who thinks that that scene is about the young people bringing about a reverie of peace. I think you've gone over the deep end on this movie.
Roger, that's what great scenes do. They make you go over the deep end, and there's no argument against loving any scene in a movie that deeply.
Well, I wouldn't quarrel with your choice. I'm just saying it isn't my choice. My favorite musical scene comes from what is probably the greatest musical ever made, Singing in the Rain. But although a lot of people would probably choose the Gene Kelly title number from that movie with him splashing through the water because he found out that the girl he loves him, my choice is one of the most uninhibited, high-energy, go-for-broke song and dance scenes ever filmed. It takes place on a Hollywood soundstage and uses a lot of the props and tricks of movie making to build into its gags. And it stars Donald O'Connor, whose all-purpose showbiz advice is make 'em laugh.
Come alive.
And the amazing thing about that number, which I have talked to Donald O'Connor about, is, of course, that there was obviously no double. He was an amazingly athletic stunt dancer at that time in his career, and climbing those brick walls and crashing through and falling over the sofa, and all of that stuff is just so invigorating when you see it in a movie theater. I've never seen it when it doesn't really bring the audience.
Well, what I love about it is that it just breaks through the frame constantly. Yeah. I mean, dance is breaking a rhythm, of the natural rhythm of a body at rest, and this film uses dance, that sequence uses dance as well as it can be. It's a great choice. It's a classic choice. I went for something a little more personal.
Oh, well, good for you. This was very personal, too. Coming up next, our favorite action scenes of all time. Edition of Siskel and Ebert, Gene and I are choosing our favorite scenes of all time in several basic movie categories. And the next category is action scenes. And I can't think of any action scene in a movie more riveting and sweeping and terrifying than this one from Francis Ford Coppola's great 1979 movie Apocalypse Now, where the music of Wagner plays as Robert Duvall leads a helicopter attack on a Vietnamese village. The thing about that is that it's not your usual action scene, which often to people means a battle scene. These are people who are attacking unilaterally, and that's the terrifying thing about it. And the music, I saw this movie the first time at the Cannes Film Festival with big surround sound, and the sound of those helicopters and the terrifying sound of that music, and then the rockets and the explosions. It was absolutely unforgettable.
Well, using music, I mean, that's the great scene. We've seen helicopters before.
Yeah.
The napalm bombs in the forest that opened the picture, that was remarkable. But it's the use of the music. And Stanley Kubrick has used music very well in action moments. It's a classic example of that.
I've never seen a military engagement in a film that was more unforgettable than that one.
Okay, my choice after considering the roundup scene in Red River and the elevated train chase in The French Connection, again, I went with a more personal action sequence. One of the brutal fights in Martin Scorsese's Raging Bull, the Jake LaMotta versus Sugar Ray Robinson battle, where Scorsese, using his soundtrack so well, takes us inside the head of a fighter, LaMotta played by Robert De Niro, as he hears animal sounds, maybe trumpeting elephants. A great action scene that pumps you up. Get ready.
Round 8, and it's anybody's fight at this point. 10-rounder. LaMotta drives both hands to the head. Hurts Robinson again. Hooks the left hand of the jaw right to the body. Robinson comes back with a right on the nose. LaMotta drives him across the ring. A left and a right to the head. A hard left hand to the body, and Robinson is driven out of the ring for the first knockdown of his career. This is the nearest Robinson has been to a loss.
It's interesting. We both pick action scenes where the soundtrack makes it very special. And with most action scenes, even the great ones, you feel as though you're standing outside of them, watching an event. But in that fight sequence, Martin Scorsese takes us inside a fighter's head with those sounds. And I'll never forget it. That's what it must feel like as you go around the ring.
Yeah, that was the first boxing movie, I think, that really made you see boxing as a savage animal fight rather than as just some kind of a thrilling passage in an otherwise ordinary movie. It was a great film and a great scene. Coming up next, Gene and I pick our favorite scenes from movie comedies.
Special show on our personal favorite movie scenes of all time. The next category is comedy, and rather than choose among the Marx Brothers, Buster Keaton, Laurel Hardy, Mel Brooks, Woody Allen, I went for a director known for his dark comedy style, Stanley Kubrick, and one of the hilarious war room monologues in his 1964 classic, Dr. Strangelove. Here's the situation. The United States has mistakenly launched its arsenal of B-52 bombers at the Soviet Union. At first, it seems there's no way to get them back, and it's up to the timid American president, Merkin Muffley, played by Peter Sellers, to call the Russian premier and explain, whoops, what happened? Here's Peter Sellers at his best.
One of our base commanders, he had a sort of, well, he went a little funny in the head. You know, just a little funny. And he went and did a silly thing. Well, I'll tell you what he did. He ordered his planes to attack your country. Well, let me finish, Dmitri. Let me finish, Dmitri. Well, listen, how do you think I feel about it? Can you imagine how I feel about it, Dmitri? Why do you think I'm calling you? Just to say hello? Of course I like to speak to you. Of course I like to say hello. Not now, but any time, Dmitri. I'm just calling up to tell you something terrible has happened. It's a friendly call. Of course it's a friendly call. Listen, if it wasn't friendly, you probably wouldn't have even got it.
That scene makes me laugh and think at the same time. There have been a lot of famous phone call scenes in the movies, none better than that. And when I see that scene and laugh out loud every time, I also realize how much I miss Peter Sellers, one of our greatest comic talents, dead now, almost 12 years.
You know, thinking of Peter Sellers reminds me of another great comic scene, which is the beginning of Blake Edwards' movie, The Party. Remember that, where he inadvertently sets off the entire movie stunt
We miss
at the wrong
him
time?
a
Yes,
lot.
we do. Well, the funniest movie scene I've ever seen, my personal favorite, is from The Producers by Mel Brooks. And that's a movie that has a lot of really funny scenes in it, but my favorite is one that contains the element of truth that I've actually been able to use in my life. Let's look at the scene, and then I'll tell you about it. Zero Mostel stars as a crooked Broadway producer whose meek little accountant, played by Gene Wilder, is so terrified of Mostel's megalomania that he has an anxiety attack.
Please don't jump on me. I'm not gonna jump. I'm not gonna. Will you get a hold of yourself? Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Oh, no. I'm hysterical. I'm having hysterics. I'm hysterical. I can't stop when I get like this. I can't stop. I'm hysterical. No. I'm wet. I'm wet. I'm hysterical and I'm wet. I'm in pain and I'm wet. And I'm still hysterical. No, don't hit. It doesn't help. It only increases my sense of danger.
Now that scene, in fact, the whole movie, the first time I saw it, I laughed longer and louder than at any other comedy I've ever seen. But that scene to me seems to have a real element of truth in it, because so often what happens is when you're in a really problem area, something will come along to make it worse. And then you realize that the cure was as bad as the disease.
The other thing I like about that, the other scene I like is when he says at the end of the picture, I want that money.
Yeah.
Mel Brooks, in his best pictures, 12 Chairs, this one, cuts right through to elemental human emotions.
Yes, he does.
In such a spectacular way. It's great to be the king.
Remember the scene where Zero Mostel has a lot of money in the safe, and he falls down on the floor next to the safe. He reaches out, he pats the money, and he says, hello, boys.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Coming up next, romance at its best. Scenes. And my original choice here was going to be the final scene in An Officer and a Gentleman, that famous moment when Richard Gere sweeps Deborah Winger off her feet and carries her out of the factory while her friends all cheer. Well, that's a great scene, but then I thought, no, I'm going to take an enormously tender and moving scene from a little-known recent movie named The Man in the Moon, where a young teenage girl gets a crush on the boy next door, and in a breathless and perfect moment one summer afternoon, she experiences her first kiss.
How was that? Perfect.
And those actors are Reese Witherspoon and Jason London. And you know, when I was thinking of some of the great movie kisses,
right,
you always think of the names of the stars. You think of Gable and Vivian Leigh, or you think of Bergman and Cary Grant. And here, you think of the characters. It's really happening to these two people. And that's why, when I saw the movie, I was so enormously touched, because I realized exactly what was happening.
Well, I think you used a very good word in describing that scene, which I admire too, and that is perfect. There's something elemental and perfect about it. It helps that we don't know those actors. The situation is perfect. And now, I think I got another perfect one, my favorite romantic scene of all time. I first thought of Cary Grant kissing Ingrid Bergman in Notorious, in what at the time was the longest movie kiss in history. But then I decided to go way back to 1931, to Charlie Chaplin's City Lights, with its heartbreaking, absolutely pure and perfect romance between Chaplin's little tramp and a blind girl played by Virginia Sherrill. Though he hasn't a penny, he gives her the richness of his love, and late in the picture, she recovers her sight and realizes that the kind man who helped her and played with her is not a man of wealth, but a poor little tramp. Get out your handkerchief. Love is blind? On the contrary. That great scene argues that love is being able to see beyond the physical world as one fragile spirit connects with another. I don't think any greater love has been shown in the history of the movies.
Well, that's a pretty big statement,
Yeah.
but just on the basis of City Lights, I'll agree with you. That's a terrific scene, and of course the payoff at the end of that movie is one of the great endings in movie history, so I'm glad that you reminded us of it. When we come back, our personal favorites among the movie's best dramatic scenes.
Favorite dramatic scenes, and all of these scenes, needless to say, are available on home video, videotape, and Laserdisc, and if you haven't seen any of them, you gotta. Maybe my choice for best dramatic scene should be considered an action scene, but the drama of the moment I'm about to show you is as dramatic, I will submit, as any in the history of film. Again, I go to Stanley Kubrick, and to the critical moment in his 2001 A Space Odyssey from 1968, in which, in the greatest jump cut in movie history, a primitive man's weapon, a bone, becomes another weapon, a satellite carrying bombs. I think the proper response to that scene has always been, wow. And in that scene, I think Kubrick cuts across human history so that 1,000,000 years from now, someone writing about the history of the Earth would include both that bone and that satellite as significant events and cut out a whole lot that's gone on in between. That's humbling. That's wow.
I'm not sure, though, that it's drama, because it seems to me that drama involves dialogue and people. I mean, that would have been my assumption in choosing for this category. Maybe you've kind of stretched the category a little bit.
But Roger, I thought of drama as an emotional moment that wasn't somebody knocking somebody out or something like that in action, or a chase. I mean, you know that sequence. You probably remember where you were when you first saw it.
I sure do. I was in the theater. My favorite dramatic scene is one that never, ever fails to send chills down my spine, and I mean that literally. It moves me so deeply, it defines the appeal of the movies for me. My scene is the first meeting between Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman in Casablanca. Now, we know there is a song that Bogart doesn't want Dooley Wilson to play. We don't know why. Bergman walks into Rick's place and recognizes the piano player and asks him to play the song. He doesn't want to, but he does.
And when two lovers woo, they still say I love you. On that you can rely. No matter what the future brings as time goes by.
Sam, I thought I told you never to play.
Well, you were asking about Rick, and here he is. Mademoiselle, may I present...
I will, sir.
Hello, Rick.
Now, I said in introducing that scene that chills go down my spine when I watch it. You and I both have a personal code that we never use these critics' phrases, such as I laughed until I fell on the floor, I cried until I thought my heart would break. We never report physical responses that do not take place. So I am assuring you that an actual chill really does go down my spine every time I see that scene. It's like the Star-Spangled Banner at a basketball game. It really thrills me.
I think what people are missing is complications in love story. Think about the picture of Sharon Stone and Michael Douglas attacking each other in bed. That's what love is in the 90s.
Yeah.
This is what love was in the 40s, and we long
And it's
for
also
that.
what drama was, too, because actually the reason these two people broke up and the reason they're not going to get back together has to do with the fact that the problems of a couple of little people don't make, how does it go? Aren't worth a hill of beans in a world like ours.
It's fun doing this show, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Okay.
That's it for this week. Next week, we'll be back with reviews of some new movies, including The Man Without a Face, starring and directed by Mel Gibson. A story about a friendship between a small-town boy and a recluse.
Have a good look. Get it over with, and we'll continue.
That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.
Fashion Bug for the latest in Junior, Mrs. Plus, even girls and men's fashions. 1,200 stores coast to coast. Fashion Bug fits your life. St. Ives Swiss Formula Apricot Scrub. St. Ives Swiss Formula polishes your complexion beautifully, naturally. St. Ives Swiss Formula Apricot Scrub. Introducing new light walkers from Easy Spirit. Soft, flexible leather combined with real arch support, plus all the cushioning of an athletic shoe. No ordinary shoe performs quite like them from Easy Spirit. Klondike Caramel Light Bars. Great caramel taste, less fat, no sugar added. What would you do for a Klondike?